I'm in Karachi, a megacity of more than 20 million people, bigger than London, Paris, or Los Angeles. For most of the world, Karachi barely exists in their imagination. Here, in the middle of it all, stands the mausoleum of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Pakistan's founder, a symbol of ambition surrounded by one of the loudest, messiest cities on earth. All around it, traces of another era, colonial buildings left behind from when the British saw Karachi as a prized port. A reminder that outsiders have always had an interest in this city, just rarely in the people building it from within. But that's not what this story is about. It's about how a city this chaotic became one of the most entrepreneurial places I've ever seen. Karachi wakes up fast. By noon, 20 million people will need the same things: rights, power, water, cash flow. So here's the question I'm chasing. Who actually makes a city this big work? My journey starts here, in Clifton Beach, where I'm staying. This stretch of coastline is Karachi's social equalizer. Rich or poor, everyone comes here. On one side, kids riding camels, street vendors selling corn, and families picnicking by the sea. On the other, luxury towers and high-end restaurants that light up after sunset. And this morning, I'm not just here to watch. I'm getting picked up by Maha Shahzad. She's the founder of BusCaro, a startup trying to solve one of Karachi's most impossible problems: moving millions of people around this megacity every single day.
What does BusCaro mean?
Oh my God, great question, very tricky question. It means a lot of things. So quite literally BusCaro, and so we're talking about buses and cars, which is what we move. But BusCaro also means take the bus, if you translate it for Urdu. And it also means stop it, or like cut it out. And so we say BusCaro a lot generally in Urdu for things that need to be put an end to. So yeah, it has a lot of meanings.
So what's your background? Where did you grow up?
I grew up all over the place. Born in Karachi, lived in the US for most of my life. And then in 2017, I moved to Pakistan. Been 8.5 years, haven't looked back.
What were you doing in the US before you came back here?
I was working in fashion, nothing to do with what I'm doing today. Really close friend of mine, Talha, who later ends up at Kareem, calls me up one day. I'm in New York. He's like, you want to come fix some shit? And I'm like, okay, I will come fix. So, came here for Kareem, fell in love with the impact that we were creating, and have been in some capacity working in mobility ever since.
So you were ex-Kareem, ex-Swivel. What makes you think that BusCaro has a chance?
I think BusCaro has already done things that other mobility players have not actually been able to do. BusCaro has been around for 3 years. We have burned $1 million in total. We've surpassed the sales scale that Swivel and Airlift in their peak had ever gotten to. My business model is different than, say, Swivel's. But I am very much going after the same issue that they wanted to go after, right? And we've had great success so far. We're very happy with the progress we've made.
As Maha talked about everything BusCaro has done, it hit me that Karachi's huge population leaves lots of space for more players in this field. And to understand why that is, we have to go back. This was once a British port, carved into the empire in the 1800s. Back then, Karachi was just a fishing village on the Arabian Sea. The British turned it into a gateway, a colonial outpost that connected their empire to the region. Then came 1947, partition. The British had ruled India for almost 200 years. But after World War II, Britain was broke and exhausted. They didn't have the resources to hold on to their biggest colony anymore. So they decided to leave, and quickly. But leaving meant deciding what to do with a population of 400 million people, with Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, people who had lived side by side for centuries. At the time, many Muslim leaders like Muhammad Ali Jinnah argued that Muslims wouldn't be safe in a Hindu-majority India, so they demanded their own country, Pakistan. The British agreed to the split, but here is the crazy part. They sent this guy, a British lawyer named Cyril Ratcliffe, to actually draw the border. Ratcliffe had never been to India before. He didn't know its geography, its languages, or its politics, and he had just 5 weeks to carve up one of the most complex regions in the world. His solution was crude. Districts with Muslim majorities would go to Pakistan and Hindu or Sikh majorities would stay in India. So when Radcliffe drew the line, it sliced through farms, railways, rivers, even families. And this is how we ended up with one of the largest forced migrations in history. 14 million people crossed the new border, and at least 1 million were killed in riots, massacres, and chaos. As a Moroccan, I grew up with colonial echoes too, but what happened here in 1947 was on a scale the world barely understands. And Karachi, suddenly the capital of this brand new country, became ground zero for that migration.
What's the most satisfying thing that you feel that you have with building BusCaro?
It is the random reviews that I end up reading, right? Not the ones where I've called a customer and asked them, but the ones where, sometimes people will write an article on us and they'll reach out to random users. And I'm not aware of this. And then suddenly I'm reading about it in the news, about what some young girl had to say or what a parent had to say about sending their minor with us. And I think that is what continuously keeps me up at night and keeps me going.
One thing that I really liked about you that you said was that you don't care about Pakistan's problems. You care about building solutions. I think you said that in one of the interviews. I don't know if you remember.
I don't.
But I really like that attitude. And I think a lot of people don't have that attitude. What's your advice for founders start building it in sexy markets, maybe for unsexy markets? What's your advice for that?
I think you have to be very clear on what you're signing up for, right? If you want to build in a market like Pakistan or in another such market, then you already know capital is going to be difficult. You already know the sort of regulatory challenges you're signing up for. You know the devaluation. You know every single issue that you are ultimately going to be complaining about, right? And so you sign up for that. Those are the challenges that you're then signing up for and you're trying to resolve, right? And instead of focusing on things you have absolutely no control over, you go and focus on the bits that you do. I think it's okay to not want to sign up for that. And I think we all need to just be honest with ourselves. There's far easier markets in terms of growth, in terms of investor appetite, in terms of just ease of doing business. Go build there otherwise, right? And that's also a completely fair thing to be doing. But I don't think it's okay to be launching a Pakistan and then saying, oh no, why is it so difficult? A 3-year-old could have told you that. That's why you're here. That's what you've signed up for.
Today, BusCaro has raised over $3.5 million. After more than 1,000 rejections, Maha built a company that now does over $7 million in top-line revenue. Maha's story isn't just about one startup, it's a window into how Pakistan's founders survive in a system still learning how to back them. Money is scarce here. Most global investors don't touch Pakistan. It's too risky and too unstable for them. Which brings me back here to Cafe Flow in Clifton. It's where I'm meeting Rabeel Warraich, founder of Sarmayacar and a judge on Shark Tank Pakistan. Through him, I want to understand a bigger question. Who is actually funding Karachi's entrepreneurs? And why would anyone believe the next billion-dollar company could be born in a city most of the world overlooks?
I was born in Rawalpindi, which is a sister city next to Islamabad. I went to initially a cadet college over here, which is run by the military, so had my elbows and everything, all the edges removed. Then I ended up going to university in the US at MIT, and then did a year at Oxford in the UK. And I started my career in investment banking, Morgan Stanley, London. Then moved over to private equity, did that for about 7-8 years, and moved back to Pakistan in 2018. And that's when I set up Sarmayacar, which was then the first venture capital fund for Pakistan, a $25 million vehicle, which we've invested since then in 24 businesses, ranging from Bykea to ProCheck and others. We are now about to launch our second fund, which is also going to include Saudi. In fact, it's going to be more of a Saudi focus with leveraging the opportunity that we see out of Pakistan. And we can talk more about it. And they continue to be setbacks. In the peak year that we had venture capital investment in the country, it was VC per capita was still around $1. regularly, every year, you have Egypt and Indonesia investing close to $40 per capita. India, again, let's not even compare it to the US, which is like, $1,000 plus per capita. And so that creates a supply demand imbalance. And while that creates opportunity as well in terms of leaving white space, how to then effectively unlock that capital to give the kind of risk cover to these entrepreneurs remains very much a challenge. And I think that's why we need to also now evolve from just like the initial narrative that we had, which is like untapped market. But a lot of capital came in almost too quickly. We were not prepared. And there's this saying that you run ahead of your skis. The ecosystem effectively faced that. We had inflated prices for valuations for these businesses, where business models were still not tested, but also some certain habits developed in the founders where they were spending money to cover a problem rather than addressing the problem really. And so a lot of that capital did not necessarily make a return, or has not yet. And so when the same funds started looking at the opportunities and saw like the global VC market kind of take a pullback, higher interest rates, etc., they started really kind of pricing risk better for Pakistan at that time, because they could see similar opportunities or maybe more attractive opportunities in their own backyards without the risk of Pakistan.
Here's the thing. When Pakistan's most skilled people leave, the economy doesn't just lose workers, it loses multipliers. Every year, over 100,000 highly qualified professionals emigrate, be it doctors, engineers, or founders. They take with them years of education, experience, and potential tax revenue. They send money back, sure. Remittances hit $38 billion last year, but the math doesn't balance out. Economists estimate the country loses $4.2 billion every year in what's called opportunity cost, the innovations, startups, and jobs that never happen at home. Talking to Rabeel, you start to realize Pakistan's startup scene isn't short on ideas, it's short on oxygen. And while investors chase the next unicorn, some people are quietly fixing the fundamentals. One of them is Fariel Salahuddin, or the Goat Lady, and her idea might be the most unconventional solution I've seen yet.
So we started in about 2019, and we were only selling during Eid time, and we were pretty small then. And then as we grew, one of our biggest clients, Metro, came along. They were our first big client, and that caused the growth that we needed to kind of leapfrog. So we grew in that. Over the next 2 years after that, we grew like 5 times and then 6 times. And that allowed us basically to grow the work that we do at the back end, which is reaching the farmers and sourcing the animals through the barter and through cash payments. And I wasn't thinking of this as a business. That accelerator actually kind of said, why don't we do this as a business? And they gave us a small bit of funding to prove the model. By that time, we had only worked in 1 village. That small bit of funding, which was also about 40,000, allowed us to scale it up to 10 villages and prove that this works. And then after that, then we got the Will Till for Hunger funding, which allowed us to get a team together and really then scale up.
Yeah.
And now we're in more than 90 villages in Pakistan.
Nice.
And starting in Kenya soon.
So how does the model work? Explain it to me like I'm a 12-year-old.
Okay, fine. So the way the model works is that there's a village which needs a solar water pump or a solar home lighting system. They will give us 20 goats, which we then bring on and process it and sell it as meat. We in turn give them a solar pump, which we get through a solar company. We pay the solar company cash, and we then get the goats from the village as payment, which we then sell to a place like Metro or at Eid and recover the cost in cash. And this cycle then continues.
Fariel's company has made over $2.5 million, bootstrapped and powered by grants. And I'll be honest, I usually run the other way when I hear social business, because too often it turns into what I call poverty porn. Stories that make people feel good about helping the poor, but rarely create something that can stand on its own 2 feet. a short-term fix that depends on outside money and disappears when the funding does. But what Fariel built is different. It's not a handout, it's a money-generating business with a brand being built. And in an era where most founders chase scale and funding, this one chases sustainability, and somehow that might be even harder.
Can you show me your products?
So this is chicken. We don't do chicken.
Okay.
This is lamb. This is probably all of our meat.
Yes.
We do 80% of Metro's meat in
Okay.
Karachi. This is ours for sure. All of this. As you can see, it's very fresh.
Yeah, very fresh.
Yeah.
In Karachi, it's monsoon season, and when it rains here, it really rains. Roads flood, traffic stops, and the whole city slows down. And that's why when we went to meet Muneeb Maayr, the founder of Bykea, his office was completely empty. It felt fitting because this is the reality he's been building for all along. Muneeb is one of the OGs, a veteran of Pakistan's startup scene. Before Bykea, he co-founded Daraz, Pakistan's first major e-commerce platform, the one that proved people here would shop online, years before Amazon or Alibaba showed up. Daraz was eventually acquired by Alibaba, and Muneeb went on to raise over $15 million to build Bykea, a homegrown platform for rides, deliveries, and cash transfers.
So you're one of the longest standing ones in the tech scene here.
Yeah.
Why do you think Karachi kind of attracts more the tech startups versus Lahore?
One, it's the largest city in the country, right? So if you want to start a business that is consumer facing, Karachi makes sense, right? Then even from an e-commerce perspective, given that it's the industrial hub of the country, and where a lot of the brands are also kind of headquartered, and the courier companies are also headquartered, shipping is a lot easier from here as well. But there's still a bunch of startups basically in Lahore. I mean, I'm not from Karachi, right? So I moved down myself from Islamabad, the capital, to come to Karachi. So you'll find a lot of basically people within the country who move to Karachi to start a business as well. Karachi, just by default, being the largest city, tends to attract talent from the rest of the country as well.
Do you think that founders who are raised abroad have a chance to come back to Pakistan these days and build?
I think so. I mean, I'm an example as well, right? So I think the easiest opportunity for them is services, because they can continue to, tiptoe back to the West whenever they want to. And services basically means that you've got clients in the West predominantly, or the Middle East. And so I think that's a lot easier than startups that are targeting the local market here. But I think to target the local market here, you need at least a handful of years of experience in Pakistan to really understand the market before you get completely sucked in and committed to this.
So the opportunity itself in mobility is still quite big, right, in Pakistan?
So it's a big enough opportunity. And if you look at basically the startups as well, right? So startups in Pakistan have focused on like 3 or 4 areas. And that's where you see scale today, right? While you may see many types of startups, but you see scale in 3 verticals. One, you see scale in e-commerce, and Daraz leads that as a platform. Then there's food delivery, and Food Panda monopolizes that space. Both of these are internationally owned companies. And the third is mobility, right? Where InDrive, Bykea, and Yango are competing. So these 3 categories will continue to dominate, in my view, because the population is only getting more and more tech savvy, and people are migrating more and more towards digital payments as well. Even though today is technically not the best day because it's raining and you would think that deliveries would be compromised. I received 2 items that I ordered a couple of days back, right? So I think it's becoming very common for people to not go a day without buying something or the other or receiving something or the other.
So you could technically build anywhere, right? Why build in Pakistan?
Because I think the amount of capital that is required to compete in a developed geography is a lot more. I mean, I think it's easy to say that, hey, this business would be a lot easier to grow in a developed economy, sure. But user acquisition costs and operational costs in that geography would also be significantly more. So you just need a lot more capital.
In most countries, the future of tech looks like AI, robots, and billion-dollar valuations. But in Pakistan, the next big thing might just be groceries. But groceries are messy. They're low margin, high frequency, and brutally hard to scale. But they're also the one thing everyone, everywhere has to buy. And that's why the grocery business is one of the biggest tests of any economy. Who controls it usually controls how money moves. In China, that company was Pinduoduo, an app that didn't just sell products, it turned shopping into a game. You invite your friends, buy in groups, and get lower prices. And in a few years, it went from a quirky social experiment to a $200 billion company. Pakistan has one of the biggest grocery markets in the world, but most of it still happens in cash, in corner shops, and completely offline. Dilkart is trying to change that.
So we are at the warehouse right now.
Yeah.
Walk me through the process of I'm a customer, I buy something through the app.
Yeah.
How does it work here?
So we've got everything that a customer could need in terms of their groceries and their daily essentials at home. And recently we've added a big selection of non-grocery SKUs as well. So like electronics, fashion, household lifestyle items. So we've got that stuff going as well. So everything from fresh milk, meat, fresh fruits and vegetables, all the way to detergents, soaps, you have it, right? So all of that. So essentially a big superstore selection. So whatever the customer orders, so let's say I'm placing an order right now for like a wide, big basket of my monthly groceries. So we're going to receive that order and there's a continuous picking operation that is happening, picking and packing operation that is happening at all times, right? 24 hours. So today's dispatch is already gone. So every morning at 10, our dispatch is done.
So usually that sits on that line.
Exactly. So once all of the products are packed, these parcels are packed, they're sorted in between these routes, right?
Okay.
So they're sorted in routes, and then the riders come in, they do a QC process, they do a quality, they'll count the products and all of that.
Yeah.
And we don't do quick commerce, so we deliver the next day.
I've seen that.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason why we do that is because our fundamental thesis and our understanding of the Pakistani consumer is that it's not about that I need it right here, right now. It's great. That's a great thing to have. But of course, in order to make that sustainable, the price has to be high, right? Because it's very expensive for me to deliver something to you within 30 minutes. I need to open a warehouse close to you. I need to have riders ready to go, and they'll probably just be able to take your order with them. They won't be able to stack multiple orders, 2 at best, right? That's what the standard industry, 2.5, doesn't go more than that. So what happens is that's a very expensive proposition, and the Pakistani people, who we're operating for, are looking to save money. And the behavior patterns are such that these orders are always small orders, right? They're not big orders. If you need something right now, it's usually something that it's going to be like, 3-4 items. So I think there's a lot of value here for the consumer to be unlocked. And over time, this is a very fast growing market. We're already, I think the size of this operation is testament to the fact that this market is growing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think over time, this is going to be huge in Pakistan, e-commerce and grocery e-commerce overall in the next 5 years as well.
I came here looking for the next unicorn, the next flashy success story that would make the world pay attention. Maybe, just maybe, if we could tell the story through the same Western lens of achievement, venture rounds and valuation headlines, then Pakistan might seem worth paying attention to. But that's not what innovation looks like here. It's not glamorous or as loud, it's functional. Take ProCheck, for example. Its founder, Saim, doesn't sell convenience or lifestyle, but a Fitbit for manufacturers around the world. That's how he fought the funding drought, by flipping the script and exporting innovation from Pakistan instead of importing capital to it.
So I'm Saim, and I'm the founder of ProCheck. And ProCheck has basically developed a Fitbit for industrial equipment. Essentially, we're able to diagnose and monitor machines in factories.
So you went to Canada to study, right?
Yes.
What made you come back?
So, when I graduated, right, like within a couple of years, I was sort of exploring what I could do within technology. And, one of the things that I noticed at the time was I actually went to Indonesia in over Christmas in 2012. And one of the things that I noticed was, I was in a rural area in Indonesia. The only difference between Indonesia and Pakistan really at the time was everyone there seemed to have some sort of smartphone, right? And because of that, they could hail a cab, they could pay someone, and it was just like life in an Indonesian village was actually, pretty decent. And, I just thought of that and I was like, okay, Pakistan will go through that, sort of transition. And it's interesting, like a year after I moved back, I think there was a 3G auction and, a lot of the economy started getting digitized. So I think that was like part of the bet that, Pakistan will undergo a transformation in the way that Indonesia's had one, in the way that China perhaps had one in the 2000s and so forth, specifically with regard to tech.
So you arrived back in Pakistan. What did you do?
Yeah, so I came back, with, some savings, which was enough to maybe get me through like a year and a half. And then after about a year, we got grant funding from Grand Challenges Canada. It's a partnership between the Gates Foundation and the Canadian government. So that they had this I think the STARS and Global Health Program. We got grant funding from them. And that's kind of like what got us off the ground. And then after that, we were actually one of the first companies that got, sort of venture funding in the country. I think we were Sarmayacar's second investment in 2018. And then after that, it's been, venture capital and obviously our revenue. That's finances.
We touched on it earlier, but why build in Karachi?
It's the largest city. It has the largest sort of industrial throughput. A lot of the multinationals are headquartered here. So you get you have manufacturing, you have a lot of the capital, and then you also have a lot of the talent sort of concentrated here, right? So it's kind of people who want to make it will generally want to move here.
What are the opportunities that you see in Pakistan that maybe people from outside overlook, or even, local founders?
So I think the first is, we have this huge labor arbitrage advantage, right? And we've, I think to be fair, we've taken advantage of it in a few spaces in tech services or in textiles. But I think even for us, right, we hadn't thought of that in the beginning, but a substantial chunk of our revenue now comes from exports, right, to various countries. So I think there's an opportunity to build products in the local market, which is also a little more forgiving, and then sell those products globally, right? I think that's a big opportunity that a lot of founders maybe hadn't looked at before, and that's a significant opportunity to tap.
Like many cities, Karachi is nothing if not contradictions. Its fishermen rowing out from the same bay where billion-dollar cargo ships dock. Its luxury beachside dining just miles from neighborhood with daily blackouts. The city is always two things at once, broken and booming, fragile and ambitious. Maybe I notice it more because I grew up in Casablanca, another city defined by contrast. You learn to live in the gap between what is and what could be. Later, when I moved to some of the biggest cities in the West, I realized that for many there, the grey doesn't exist. Life feels more binary. Systems work or they don't. Things are safe or unsafe. So when outsiders look at cities like Karachi, the story is almost always one-sided. They see the broken, the dangerous, the chaotic, rarely the ambitious, the inventive, the possibility. And that's the blind spot. Not that the bad isn't real, but that it's never the whole picture. The world sees Karachi as a problem, but what I've seen is a prototype for how the next generation of cities might actually work.